This show is sponsored by Audible. Fans of It Matters can get a 30-day free trial of Audible. Stay tuned for details. Hello, and welcome to It Matters How We Treat One Another, the social science show. I'm your host, Matthew David Vasco. If you subscribe to this show on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform, then thank you. We are grateful for each and every one of our subscribers. We're also thankful for our patrons on Patreon. Your support helps to make this episode possible. My guest this episode is renowned nonviolence activist and educator Michael Nagler. Michael is the co-founder of the Meta Center for Nonviolence and has worked tirelessly for decades, both promoting and assisting in strategizing for successful nonviolent change throughout the world. I've followed Michael's work for many years, and you will hear during our interview what a big fan I am of him and his highly meaningful work. But first, our inspiring news. If inspiring things are happening in your neck of the woods, then please send us a direct message on one of our social media accounts and let us know. You can find us by our show name on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Blue Sky. This episode's inspiring news comes from positive.news. The headline reads, Life After Being a Leader of the Far Right. Nigel Bromwich spent almost 2 decades as a member and leader of the British far right. What made him leave his hate-filled path? The answer to that question is that it took many years for seeds of doubt to take root in Nigel's mind. But there was a definite moment when everything changed. The article says that the turning point came after he left a Combat 18 meeting, that's a far-right extremist group, one day to find 15 fellow extremists racially abusing a black man. Nigel decided at that moment to stand up to them. Quote, I told them if they wanted to get him, they'd have to go through me, Bromwich says. Quote, I remember his wife and kids crying in the bus shelter nearby. A couple of other guys backed me up. We got the family into a cab, gave the driver a tenner, and told him to get them out of there. I decided there and then I wanted out. End quote. Now, Bromwich runs Exit Hate, an organization which helps others leave far-right hate groups. He says, quote, we have to use education, compassion, and understanding. And we have to listen to people who feel the extreme right offers them a voice. We have to fill that void. End quote. It's inspiring to know that there are people who have left hate groups who now are working to help others do the same. Again, if you know of inspiring things happening in your area, then please DM us on our socials and let us know. Thanks. Up next is our feature segment. But first, this show is sponsored by Audible. You probably already know that Audible is an outstanding source for audiobooks, but did you know that Audible is also an amazing resource for guided wellness? It's true, and fans of our show can get a free month of Audible Premium Plus just by clicking the link in our episode description or by visiting the podcast page at matthewvasco.com. Again, that's a free month of Audible Premium Plus by clicking the link in our episode description or by visiting matthewvasco.com and clicking podcast. And now our feature segment. My guest today is Michael N. Nagler. Michael is Professor Emeritus of Classics and Comparative Literature at UC Berkeley, where he co-founded one of the first peace and conflict studies programs in the United States. In 1981, he also co-founded the Meta Center for Nonviolence, where he continues to dedicate his life to the values of nonviolence and spiritual discovery. He is the co host of Nonviolence Radio, a popular radio show and podcast focused on exploring nonviolence, and has authored numerous influential books, including The Nonviolence Handbook and The Third Harmony. Welcome, Michael.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for that introduction. I'm absolutely delighted to be talking with you this morning.
And I am delighted to have you on the show. It is such a pleasure for me. This is like a dream interview for me. You're someone I've always wanted to, like when I started this show, I started thinking of sort of my dream guests, and you were on that list. So this is a
Oh,
dream come
wow.
true for me.
Oh,
So
I,
happy to
I
have you.
yeah.
So
Oh,
let me just dive right into our questions here. For the sake of our audience members, we have a pretty general audience. For the sake of our audience members who might not be familiar with nonviolence, can you please give us an overview of nonviolence?
I can, Matt, and it won't be like everybody else's overview. We have our own take on it, but it's nothing different from what Gandhi and King and others have discovered and promoted. And that is that nonviolence is a capacity within every human being. And it has to do with our ability to recognize the humanity of another. And what that means in psychological terms is if someone is rousing anger or fear or some kind of negative drive in us, we are able to convert that negative energy into a creative, positive force. And then that is where nonviolence arises from. And then from there on out, it becomes a question of how you implement it in practice,
Mhm.
individually, in large groups, long term. And what we like to emphasize here at the Meta Center is the overlooked capacity of constructive action. That is, what can you build that you need before you have to start blocking what someone else is doing to you or
Mhm.
taking from you.
Love that perspective of,
Hmm.
I've studied that on your website and in your books for years, the
Hmm.
idea of building up positive infrastructure. You
Yes.
sort of envision the world the way you would like it to
Yeah.
be and go from there.
Mhm.
And I also really like one of your tenets of nonviolence, which is that it's you and me against the problem.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love that so much. It's a
Yeah.
wonderful perspective, sort of a win-win. You often use the term win-win.
Yeah. And those two terms are not original with us. They were developed by conflict resolution people some time ago, but I guess you could say we were smart enough to adapt them.
Sure. Well, that's the secret, right? Put it into practice.
Yep.
Yeah, and you've worked with non-government institutions and organizers and activists all over the world over the years, haven't you?
Well, you certainly say that, Matt. I mean, just this morning, just before our call here, one of the reasons I was a little late is I came in off a call with a fellow here in California and his partner who was in Germany.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, over the last since the pandemic, I haven't done any traveling
Mhm.
to speak of. But of course, with the internet today, you don't have to. So yes, we've spoken with people in Iran, in India, and all over Europe, and a little bit in Africa.
That's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Mhm.
And now I know that you, Mahatma Gandhi, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., all advocates of nonviolence, and you're all spiritual people. You're a very spiritual person. They were very spiritual people. To what degree does spirituality play a role in nonviolence?
Well, first of all, I'm utterly flattered that you put me in that category and with that company, Matt. Thank you. But I would say that spirituality is the indispensable driving force
Wow.
for nonviolence. And then, as I say, beyond that, it becomes a question of knowledge.
Oh,
And because in spirituality, two things happen. You develop a kind of detachment from your own personal physical well-being. So you're willing to work hard, you're willing to take risks if necessary.
mhm.
And the other thing that happens, which is, I guess, even more important, is you are innately, intuitively aware of your unity with others, even if they are threatening you, even if they are doing things that you cannot abide, you don't lose awareness of their humanity. And that's what enables you to build up this whole structure.
Yes, I was reading that on your website as I was preparing for our interview,
Mhm.
the important need for us all. And this just feels so timely to
Oh
me
boy.
with everything that's going on in the
Mhm.
world to rehumanize one
Yeah.
another,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
see each other as full human beings.
Yeah.
Everyone else has, a full range of emotions just like us and
Yeah. Yeah.
wants a lot of the same things we
Oh,
want. Yeah, I just think that's so important these days, especially with everything going on in the world.
mhm.
What can the average person do to and advocate for and advance the nonviolence movement?
Yeah, well, I always look at that, and it's a question I've been answering for decades. Look at that in levels. First of all, there is the personal spiritual development piece, which, and the way we like to describe the relations between these different levels is that whatever I fail to do in terms of my spiritual development will be a limiting factor
Mm,
on what I can do. It doesn't mean I have to, be just come right off the cushion before I go on to the picket line,
mhm,
but it's a limiting factor. Likewise, the next step is knowledge. Nonviolence has a history, long history. It has a theory. And learning that is immensely helpful. It means that we don't feel that we're alone. We're not reinventing the wheel. And then thirdly, beyond that, again, that's a limiting factor if we don't know enough about it. But then the third piece is knowing the repertoire,
mm,
knowing the techniques. How,
mm,
and that's on our website, we have a what we call escalation curve. And it kind of shows you the more advanced the conflict is, determines the kinds of mechanisms you will use. And a lot of people make both mistakes. They use much too strong a response before it's called for,
mm,
much too weak a response when it's no longer effective. So knowing where that you are on that curve and what tools you have that are appropriate to that stage, that is critical in enhancing your effectiveness.
I see. I see. And I know that we mentioned this earlier. Nonviolent action includes building up nonviolent and just institutions to replace unjust and or violent institutions. What sorts of institutions do you dream that people would build up here in the United States?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm happy to say that everyone that I'm going to mention is already happening. There are
Oh, wow.
thousands of examples of them. They may not be very self-conscious. They may not realize that what they're doing is part of a new nonviolent order. And that's where our work comes in at Meta. We try to get people to understand the context
Uh,
uh, of their work. But in terms of the direct approach to conflict, we have conflict resolution and mediation skills that people can learn once a conflict has actually happened. Before it has happened, we need to look at replacing inequitable and unjust structures in our society with equitable equivalents. And so, for example, much violence results from severe inequalities in income and capacity. So you have
mm,
people, the numbers are really staggering here, how few people have 90% of the wealth and how many people struggle with the remaining 10%. That has to be adjusted. Then there's the question of being able to provide each person with meaningful work.
mm,
So there's a big threat on the horizon here with AI. And Bernie Sanders has been speaking to this in Congress directly in the Senate, that AI has this glowing promise that they're going to automate what people are doing. But then the question is, what will the people do?
right.
And even Gandhi spoke to this very strongly that, this mad race of putting people out of work. And when people don't have meaningful work, they are crushed inside.
Yeah.
And that work can be of different kinds. Yours and ours is educational.
Mhm.
Others will be, physical structure. Others will be changing laws. But a person who cannot find a niche for constructive work, will be suffering inside. And there's even the worst extreme that will go to is when they're given destructive work to do.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. Boy,
You
that's
know,
true. I didn't think
a
of it
new
that
con
way.
a new concept that's well, not a new phenomenon, but a new term for it is moral injury, the
Mm.
harm that police or military do to themselves when
Oh,
they harm others. And it doesn't seem to matter at all whether what you're doing is legal or illegal, whether society pays you for it or doesn't pay you for it. When you injure another living being, especially another human being, you injure something in yourself.
mm.
And we have some neuroscience now to back this up and to show that it's not just a nice moral idea. It's a physiological reality that happens to yourself.
Wow.
And the contrary is also true, that when you have constructive, helpful work to do, you benefit psychologically and, psychophysically.
I can confirm that as well. I did an entire episode in the first season and recently did a follow-up to it on what they call the helper's high,
Yeah,
right? That when we serve others, it has mental and physical
yeah,
benefits
yeah.
for us.
And unlike a high that you might get off some kind of substance, it's permanent and
Right.
real.
That's a good way to say that. That's so
Yeah.
true, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, lasting, true.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, Political violence has been on the rise here in the United States. What would you say to someone who was considering performing an act of political violence because they feel like that's the only way to get their statement across?
Yeah. Well, I would say two things, Matt. I would say, first of all, it's never the only way. You are scandalizing your fellow human beings when you say that.
Mm,
I remember there was a group, this was some years ago now, there was a group planning to carry out an assassination attempt against the president. And they were asked, what do you have against the president? And they said, well, we have nothing against him really, but we just need to get attention.
mm,
And then they discovered that if they sent their petition to Congress, Congress people read it and responded. So it was futile. And then the next thing they need to understand is that it's more than futile, it's counterproductive. Because people have to learn, and this is the hardest thing for modern people to do. They have to learn to look under the surface and see that what they would be doing in those cases is using the same force that they're trying to overcome.
mm,
So even if they overcome a particular manifestation of it in a particular setting, it's going to come back worse. So our motto now in the Meta Center is that it's not so much a question of putting a different kind of people in power. That's useful, of course, but it's more a question of awakening a different kind of power in people.
I shared a quote from you about that
Oh,
recently on our
great.
page. I
Great.
did, yes. I
We
said,
are so much on the same
I,
wavelength.
oh my gosh, I so love that quote. Yes, it's
We have
not
t-shirts.
about putting a different people in power, it's about putting a different kind of power in people.
Yeah, we're not
Oh,
putting it
that
in
gives
them.
me chills. I just love it so
Yeah.
much. Yeah,
We
it's
have,
so true. It's
yeah.
so true.
The Meta now has some merchandise, right? Like everybody else. And we have t-shirts that say that.
Oh, wonderful. I'll have to get one.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What do you think the future of nonviolence looks like? For example, do you foresee the world embracing nonviolence more broadly in the future? Do you think that's the path we're heading down? That in the future we'll have more nonviolent action? See that expanding?
I have zero ability to foresee the future. Uh,
Just like the rest of us, huh?
that's like the rest of us. But one thing I do know is that what Martin Luther King said is exactly correct, that we don't really have a choice between violence and nonviolence. Our only choice is between nonviolence or non-existence.
Oh, wow.
We're
Yeah.
gonna we're gonna drive ourselves down and out if we don't adopt this. Now, fortunately, things have been improving. We've been watching this for 30, 40 years now, and I'm very pleased to notice that in the last 10 or so years, there's so much more in the way of educational resources, of practicing institutions, like
Mhm.
the institution that I like most is called Unarmed Civilian Peacekeeping, where volunteers go out and intervene in open conflict. And there's now 200, there's a pool of 200 trained, experienced interveners that
Wow.
these groups can call upon. Yeah, and in terms of learning resources, there's now a database at Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania called the Global Nonviolent Action Database. And they
Oh,
have like over 1,200 episodes of campaigns or events in nonviolence that are listed and analyzed, categorized. This is women's
wow.
movement, there's, a justice movement, various kinds. So nobody can say that they don't know that nonviolence works and they don't, and that it hasn't happened, which is what we
Right.
used to hear all the time. Never
Well,
happened.
no, I was just going to add to that that I see Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy alive and well here in the United States whenever I see people
Hmm.
take to the streets,
Yeah.
right? Uh,
But yeah, the problem with that, and again, this is something that people have become more aware of, is that is only a first step, and in itself, it doesn't do much. You know, the powers that be, they watch you march around and they watch you go back to where you came from, and for them, it's the same old, same old. It doesn't give them, they don't lose any sleep over it. But what we have to do is use those events as networking occasions
okay,
and then use them as uh, form learning groups, study groups.
okay.
That's critically important because people fail to realize that nonviolence, in addition to something that you have to perform and you have to call on your inner capacities to do that, there's a lot of learning involved.
Mhm,
You have to know what has worked, what has not worked, what's likely to, work in your situation and what isn't.
mhm. I suppose that's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea of using those as networking events
Yeah. Yeah.
for people to
Hmm.
plan the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah. To have a long-range strategic plan is absolutely critical. Otherwise, you don't know where you're going and you run out of steam very quickly. You
Right.
lose
Right. I understand
enthusiasm.
what you're saying. Right. Well, my final question here, Michael,
Yeah.
knowing that you're now, I feel like I shouldn't say your age, but
Go
you're,
ahead. I'm getting on
let's,
there.
let's say somewhere in your 80s.
Your
Uh,
late 80s, let's
what,
say.
what would you like your legacy to be?
Well, I have thought about that, Matt, and I guess it'd be on different levels. Any kind of love that I've been able to express towards anyone or any creature, I'd like to believe, and I do believe that that is not lost. You know, that goes on. So
Uh,
that's one level, and not to be discounted, and kind of strengthens and nourishes the next level, which is the years and years and years of studying that I have done in connection with people, with friends and colleagues, the creation of materials that we've been able to accomplish, but primarily these days, people always draw upon the film.
mm,
I have this 45-minute documentary, The Third Harmony, and that is always what I like to say, it's our foot in the door. If somebody wants to know what we're about, we send them the link, and then we can go from there. So it was a very rewarding process creating that thing, and it's wonderful to have it. But it's by no means all that we have. We have courses, we have seminars, we have books, and we have a board game and a radio program.
absolutely. You have a lot of things going on and out there in the world. And I feel like you have a wonderful legacy in the Meta Center for Nonviolence. The fact that that exists in the world and
Yeah.
has all of these different resources for people, I
Yeah.
think, this is going to continue to educate people and
Mhm.
advance the movement, hopefully for decades to come.
Oh, hopefully, inshallah, as they say.
Well, thank you so much. I always like to close out our interviews with something we started last season here on the show, this Feel Good Five, five rapid fire questions meant to provide our audience some feel good, some uplift.
Mhm.
I think we have, a lot of really fascinating guests here on our show
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
big thinkers and people with exciting ideas. And I just always like to get the perspective on some of these sort of simple questions that we
Mhm.
each probably have answers to for ourselves from these types of people we have on the show. You know, so I would love to hear it from you,
Yeah,
Michael. Do you mind if we do the Feel Good Five real quick?
not at all.
All right, let's go for it. So, what is your favorite feel good song?
uh, I suppose it's Raghupati Raghava, which is
Hmm.
Gandhi's theme song.
Oh, wow.
But the fact is, I mean, if I'm honest, I came out of the New York folk music revival of the
Hmm.
60s, so I often have a lot of music going through my head. And
Wow.
I guess I could also say that, one of my spiritual practices is the use of a mantra.
Ah,
And that is a kind of song. It can be rhythmic, it can be hummed, and it does me so much good inside when I use it that I not to be honest, I'd have to say that's my favorite.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
What is your favorite feel good movie or TV show?
Well, there is no good TV show as far as I am concerned, but my
Hmm.
favorite movie out beyond any other, without any question, is Attenborough's Gandhi. There are a few things that he got wrong, but an awful lot of things that he got right, and it's made a tremendous difference in the world. There's also documentaries.
Uh,
I have to say, we have our own documentary, The
yeah.
Third Harmony, and I have to like that one a whole lot. But before that, there was a big series called A Force More Powerful, which laid out, I think, in 8 episodes, the history of nonviolence, at least of strategic nonviolence action.
Okay.
So, in that order.
Very good. Very
Yeah.
good. I love Attenborough's
Oh
Gandhi as
yeah.
well. It's one of my favorites.
Start me anywhere. I can just reel off the whole dialogue.
I imagine I might be able to as well.
Yeah,
What
good.
helps lift you up when you're feeling down?
Well, that there's a very simple answer for that, and that is meditation. I have a very profound spiritual practice. I'm not terribly good at it, but even in my amateurish way, if I'm getting upset about something, I mean, right here in the office, the other side of that wall where Gandhi's picture is, we have a meditation room. And I meditate every day 3 times, morning, noon, and night. And on various occasions, if I get upset, the first line of defense is my mantra. But if it's a really deep upset and I can't hold on to the mantra, then I'll try and go and find a quiet place to sit and meditate. If I can do that for half an hour, then come back out of that using the mantra. I've yet to find a situation that I couldn't overcome with those tools.
Fantastic. And what gives your life meaning?
First of all, the unshakable faith that life has meaning, that history is moving toward uh, a destiny without violence, a nonviolent future, and that it means everything we do can be measured against that deep drive in our evolution. There's a Nobel Prize winning biologist, Albert St. Georgi, wrote an article one time called "The Drive in Living Matter to Perfect Itself."
Mm.
And in the case of a human being, perfection is the mastery of nonviolence, of that I'm sure. And so anything that we can do to facilitate that progress, first of all in ourselves and then in others in the world, is what gives meaning.
Wonderful. And finally, what inspires you?
The lives of the great human beings that you mentioned at the start of our conversation, that, Gandhi and King and Mandela and many others, or, Greta Thunberg, and
Hmm.
known and unknown who have practiced, who have elevated themselves through, in one way or another and faced up to tyranny at the risk of their life. Uh, and then the idea that people in the last 20 years or so have been able to create organizations to carry that out systematically. That is super important, very
What kind
inspiring.
of organizations are those?
Well, the general term for them, as mentioned, was unarmed civilian peacekeeping. There's about 20 organizations doing this. The one I'm most closely connected with is called Nonviolent Peace Force, and they have teams of trained nonviolent interveners in the West Bank as we speak,
Okay.
and in Sri Lanka, in Mindanao, in about 8 or 10 other places in the world. And there's also groups doing it domestically here in the U.S., like Meta Peace Teams.
It's very meaningful work. I
Yeah.
mean, those
Mhm.
people could save a lot of lives doing
They,
that work.
yeah, they can save lives. Some lives have been lost in the process. What I heard recently is that over the last, I think, 30 or so years, I think 14 people have sacrificed their lives in this work.
Oh,
But the
wow.
number of lives that they've saved, of course, would be many orders of magnitude greater than that.
Okay. Right. Wow. Um, well, that's kind of a heavy note to end on.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's just throw in that our website is metacenter.org. So,
Hey, there you go. There you go.
and that
Yes.
meta has two T's. That's not.
So many great resources on there. I go back to it again and again, and every time I go, I discover something new and
Oh, that is so
learn
wonderful
something
to
new.
hear, man.
So, yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. And I definitely encourage people to watch the Third Harmony
Hmm.
documentary as well.
When I say thank you for your work, I don't just mean for promoting the Meta Center. I mean everything you do.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your work and your lifetime of work. You've been doing amazing work for decades and decades. So, what year was the Meta Center founded? 1981,
Uh,
is that
yeah, it was
right?
kind of on the cusp of 80, 81. I think it was in 81 that we got our formal papers back from the state of California. But it was I think it was in 1980 that we were sitting around one morning at the spiritual community where I lived, and our teacher said, "What are we going to do about the violence?" And that was kind of the germ that led to this institution, which now I'm so proud to be working in.
And that you touched on a very interesting fact there. Um, um, in that last little bit, you mentioned that you live in a spiritual community,
Yes, I live in an ashram.
and you've lived there now for something like half your life, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's a lot of time, more than half of it, and it's a longish life, as you have pointed out. So, yeah, it's been my life, and the practice sustains me. I renew it every day, and do everything I can to utilize the capacities that are generated and that are enhanced by that practice. So I recognize that the kind of meditation we do, passage meditation, is it's not for everyone, but that's not my concern. My concern is to make the best use of it that I can, and never try to draw upon it for my own personal benefit, but acknowledge every single day that it's been given to me as a trust and as a tool.
Uh, Well, Michael, it has been such a pleasure talking to you. This has
Okay.
been a real treat for me.
Yeah.
And thank
Oh,
you so much for your time. And,
mm,
I'm just so honored to have the opportunity to spread the word about you and
mm.
about your organization. And I just really feel like you're one of those unsung heroes out there in the trenches, now for decades and decades doing the good work and probably don't get as much recognition as you deserve. So thank you so much, Michael.
You're so welcome, Matt. And I don't get any more recognition than my ego can hold. Let's put it that way.
Well, I love your humility. It's absolutely
Okay.
beautiful. So,
Critical.
all right. Well, thank you
Thank
so much, Michael. And
thank you, Matt.
it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Same here.
This brings us to the end of this episode of It Matters How We Treat One Another. Thank you to our guest, Michael Nagler, and please visit the Meta Center for Nonviolence's website at metacenter.org. That's METTACENTER.org. Please subscribe to keep up with all of our episodes, and you can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/itmatterspatrons. That's patreon.com/itmatterspatrons. For just a few dollars a month, you too can be an It Matters patron. You can also support us by shopping our Etsy store at etsy.com/shop/it matters merch. There are links in the description. If you want to help feed hungry people in Gaza and around the world, then please visit WFP.org and give to the World Food Program. That's WFP.org. They're not sponsors of this show. They're simply a cause that we truly believe in because combating hunger is so vitally important. Your quote of the week is, quote, "The cry for peace will be a cry in the wilderness, so long as the spirit of nonviolence does not dominate millions of people." That is from Mahatma Gandhi. And remember, treat everyone with the core four values of kindness, respect, empathy, and compassion, and try for love and acceptance whenever possible. Be well, and much love to you all.